I got a message about a package being delivered. It said it was my birthday gift. I felt excited but also a bit confused. The delivery address didn't match our apartment. At first, I thought maybe it was part of a surprise. I asked my boyfriend in a joking way, "Did you mess up the address?" He looked nervous and said, "It's part of the plan. You'll see." That didn't sit right with me. Something felt wrong. I kept thinking about it. So when he left for work, I checked the tracking number again. The address didn't just seem random, it felt familiar. I copied it into Google Maps. It was close, just a few blocks away. I remembered he once said a friend from work lived near there. My stomach turned. I went into our bedroom and started looking around. I didn't know what I was looking for, but I felt I had to know. In the back of his drawer, I found a small key on a plain ring. It wasn't for our apartment or the mailbox. It was something else. My heart was racing. I looked again at the address, then at the key. I had a feeling they were connected. I waited until the weekend, told him I was going to meet a friend, and went to the address alone. I stood outside the building for a long time before going in. I used the key. It worked. The place smelled like his cologne. There were photos on the wall. Not of me, but of him and another woman. They looked happy. Too happy. I walked to the kitchen and saw a gift bag on the table. My name was on the tag. I opened it. It was the exact thing I had once pointed out in a store, something I thought he had forgotten. He hadn't. He just gave it to her to give to me later, like I didn't matter. That moment changed everything. I stood there frozen, holding the gift in my hand, looking at their faces on the wall. My heart felt cold. I didn't cry. I just felt empty. I closed the door behind me and walked home slowly, holding a gift that suddenly meant nothing. I left the building slowly, every movement stiff with shock. My thoughts were spinning, but everything around me felt distant, almost silent. The key stayed in my pocket, pressing against my leg like a cold reminder. My hands trembled slightly. I couldn't stop replaying the image of that photo, his smile, his arm around her, their kiss frozen in that frame. The smell of his cologne still lingered in my nose. It made me feel sick. My chest was heavy, not from sadness, but from something deeper. Like the truth had reached inside me and pulled something out. Everything I had trusted felt fake now. The late nights, the phone turned face down, the half-hearted hugs. It all made sense in the worst way. My fingers curled into fists without me noticing. I wasn't angry yet. I was too stunned. The opened gift in that apartment, my name on the tag, made it even worse. He had planned to give it to me like nothing was wrong, like he hadn't already shared it with someone else. The apartment was clean, warm, full of little things that showed he spent time there. His socks, his favorite tea, his razor in the bathroom. It wasn't a secret hideout. It was a second home, one he had built quietly while pretending to be mine. Her purse, her shoes, her photo beside his. None of it felt like a mistake. It was too personal, too normal. She wasn't just someone he was seeing. She was someone he was serious about. Someone he felt comfortable enough with to leave his things behind, to frame memories, to store a gift meant for. My face felt hot, but not from crying. No tears came, just a tightness behind my eyes. My heartbeat was slow but strong, each beat reminding me I was still standing, still thinking, still here. The silence around me felt loud, pressing in from every side. The sun was out, but I felt cold. The world hadn't stopped, even though mine had cracked. I knew nothing could undo what I had seen. I had stepped into a place where the truth lived, and now I had to carry it with me. He had made his choice. He just never thought I would find it. I waited for the right moment. He was on the couch, scrolling through his phone like nothing had happened. I stood there, holding the gift in my hand. My voice was calm when I asked, "Where did you leave this?" He looked up, confused, then nervous. His face changed in seconds. He sat up straighter and asked, "Where did you get that?" I didn't answer. I just kept looking at him. He opened his mouth to speak again, but stopped. I saw the panic in his eyes. He knew. He tried to smile. "It was supposed to be a surprise," he said. "You weren't supposed to find it yet." His voice was light, but his hands fidgeted. I still didn't say anything. I placed the gift on the table between us. That silence made him uneasy. He ran his fingers through his hair and stood up. "Okay," he said, voice lower now. "You went there, didn't you?" I nodded once. He sighed and turned away. "It's not what you think." Those words. The same ones people say when they're caught. I stayed quiet. After a long pause, he said her name. "Marissa." I felt something twist inside me. He spoke quickly after that, like rushing through the truth would make it less real. "It's been a few months. For maybe. I don't know. It wasn't planned. We just started talking at work. One thing led to another." I stared at him. My legs felt heavy, but I didn't move. I watched him walk around the room, like he couldn't sit with what he'd done. He looked at me, desperate. It didn't mean anything. It was physical, that's all. I didn't love her. "I still love you." My hands were cold. I didn't believe him, but I let him talk. He kept going, trying to explain what couldn't be explained. I was stupid. I didn't think it would go this far. I didn't want to hurt you. His voice cracked. He stepped closer. Let's fix this. I'll end it. I'll cut her off. Please. I don't want to lose you. He reached for my hand, but I took a step back. I looked at him like he was someone I didn't know. And maybe I didn't anymore. I nodded slowly, pretending to think. He seemed hopeful. I watched him breathe easier, like he thought I might forgive him. But I felt nothing. His words bounced off me. The truth had already done its damage. He was only trying to patch something that couldn't be fixed. He had shared too much of himself with someone else. Lied too many times. Planned too carefully. I said nothing about what I saw in her apartment. The photo. His things. The way he smiled with her. I didn't need to say it. I didn't want to give him the power to explain any of it away. He wiped his face with his hands and sat back down. I'll make it right, he said again. I gave a small nod, as if I was still thinking. But inside, I was already somewhere else. Far from him. Far from this house. Far from everything we had shared. He believed I was considering it, that maybe I just needed time. But what I needed was space. What I needed was to protect whatever was left of me. He talked more, made promises, said we could move past this. I didn't argue. I let him believe whatever he wanted, because something in me had changed. Something had turned quiet and cold. Not angry, just finished. He went to bed thinking I might stay, but I already knew I wouldn't. Weeks passed after that night. He changed his behavior completely. He started being kind, thoughtful, and careful with everything he said. He made breakfast in the morning. He texted me during the day. He brought flowers home, even though he never used to. He smiled more, asked how I was feeling, and told me he loved me almost every day. It was like he wanted to erase what had happened. I didn't react much. I answered politely, I smiled when needed, and I thanked him when he did something nice. But I didn't feel close to him anymore. I was quiet inside. I went through the motions, but I kept some distance in my heart. I remembered everything, and nothing he did could make me forget. One afternoon, he left for the gym. I was cleaning the kitchen when I noticed some papers on the table. There was a stack of mail beside them. Most of it was just ads and bills, but one envelope looked different. It was plain but professional. My name wasn't on it, but I picked it up anyway. It was already open. I pulled out the papers inside and read them slowly. It was a job offer, a big one, from a major tech company in another state. The salary was $160,000 a year. Full benefits, bonuses, relocation support. Everything about it looked official and exciting. It was dated 2 days ago, and he hadn't said a word about it. My heart didn't race. I just felt a strange calm. He had been pretending to fix things, acting like this was where he wanted to be. But behind that, he was still making plans without telling me. He had this huge opportunity sitting in his hands, and I had to find out about it by accident. He could have told me the moment he got it. He could have shared the news, asked what I thought, or even said he was thinking about moving. But instead, he kept it to himself. Maybe he was planning to leave. Maybe he was waiting to see if I would forgive him before making a choice. Or maybe he just didn't care how I felt. I placed the paper back inside the envelope and left it exactly where I found it. I didn't say anything when he came home. He told me about his workout and asked if I wanted to watch a movie. I nodded and sat beside him on the couch, pretending everything was fine. But my mind was elsewhere. Now I knew something he didn't know I knew. And that gave me something I hadn't felt in a long time: control. He thought I was just quiet because I was healing. He didn't know I was watching every move, listening to every word, and keeping notes in my mind. He thought he still had the upper hand. But the balance had shifted. He wanted to win me back. He wanted to act like nothing had happened. But now I had a decision to make. And this time it would be mine. I sat alone after he went to work. The envelope was still where I had found it, resting among other papers like it meant nothing. I pulled it out again and read it slowly, every word. The job was a big deal, maybe the biggest thing he had ever worked for. It wasn't just a new role, it was his dream. He had talked about this company before. He used to say he would give anything to work there. I noticed the small line at the bottom. It gave a clear deadline to reply. Only 3 days. If they didn't hear back by then, they would move on. He hadn't told me about the offer, not even a hint. Maybe he wanted to accept it and leave without saying anything. Or maybe he was waiting to see how much I still cared. I had spent weeks living in the same space with him, pretending to forget what he had done. I had smiled when he smiled. I had listened to his stories, made dinner with him, laughed at the right time. He thought everything was slowly getting better. But I knew the truth, and now I had a choice. I folded the letter again and looked around. The kitchen bin was nearly full. A pizza box sat on top from the night before. I lifted it gently and pushed the envelope to the bottom, then covered it with greasy paper and other trash. It was deep enough to stay hidden, but not so deep that I couldn't check it. Later, when he came home, he kissed me on the forehead and talked about how slow his day had been. I asked about his team, his meetings, his plans. He smiled and said nothing important happened. I nodded and gave him a soft look. I knew he was lying, and I let him. Each time he stepped out, even for a few minutes, I checked the bin. The envelope stayed where I left it. He never touched it. He never looked for it. He probably thought he had put it somewhere safe, or that he would deal with it later. He kept acting like a perfect boyfriend. He cleaned, cooked, and even planned a weekend trip. I agreed to everything. I said the right things. I gave the right hugs. He thought I was healing. He thought we were moving forward. But in my mind, I was counting the days. I didn't need to rush. I just needed to wait. The deadline was coming fast, and he didn't even see it. At night, I lay beside him and listened to him breathe. He looked peaceful, like someone who believed he had done enough to be forgiven. He had no idea what was missing. I didn't feel guilt. I didn't feel hate. I felt calm. I was no longer the girl who cried over his lies. I was someone else now. I wasn't going to shout or break things or ask questions. I already had what I needed. He gave me silence. I would give it back. The evening felt normal. He came home, kicked off his shoes, and talked about his day like nothing was unusual. We ate dinner while watching a movie. Halfway through, he looked over at me and said, "Still no word from that one company. I hope they email soon." I almost laughed, but I held it in. He sounded relaxed, even hopeful. He had no clue what was really going on. His chance, the one he had dreamed about for years, was already slipping away, and he didn't even feel it. I just nodded and said, "Maybe they'll get back to you tomorrow." He smiled and kept watching the movie. I could feel my heart beating slowly. I wasn't nervous. I had already made up my mind. Later, he got dressed to go out. He said his friends were meeting up for drinks, and that he wouldn't be late. He asked if I wanted anything on his way back. I said no and gave him a soft smile. He kissed my cheek and walked out the door. Once he was gone, I moved quickly. The trash bag was already tied and waiting. I had added some more junk on top of the envelope, empty containers, wrappers, and some tissues, just in case he ever looked. But he hadn't. I carried the bag to the car. The night was quiet. The streets were almost empty. I didn't turn on any music. I just drove in silence, thinking about everything he had done. The lies, the cheating, the fake promises. How he thought he could hide it all and still win. The public dumpster was far from home, behind a row of shops I barely visited. I parked behind the building and looked around. No one was there. I stepped out, opened the trunk, and pulled out the bag. It was heavier than I remembered, maybe because of what it meant. I walked over to the dumpster and lifted the lid. The smell hit me, but I didn't care. I tossed the bag in, let the lid slam shut, and stood there for a moment. It was done. I got back in the car and drove home slowly. The streets looked the same, but I felt different, lighter. Not because of revenge, but because I had taken control. I didn't shout, I didn't break things, and I didn't make a scene. I made a choice, quiet and final. By the time he came home, I was already in bed. He smelled like beer and cologne. He leaned down and whispered, "Still no email. Maybe tomorrow." I mumbled something and turned over. He climbed into bed beside me, not knowing tomorrow was already too late. 1 week later, he got the email. I was sitting on the couch when I heard him call out from the other room. His voice was sharp and loud. He came into the living room, holding his phone, his face pale. "They said I didn't respond," he said, staring at the screen. "They thought I wasn't interested." I looked at him and raised my eyebrows. "What do you mean?" "The company," he said. "The big one. They sent me an offer, but now they're saying I never replied. They gave the job to someone else." He sounded lost. His words were fast, shaky. I blinked and said, "I thought you were waiting to hear from them?" "I was," he said, running his hands through his hair. "I was waiting for something. I don't know what happened." I kept my voice calm. "Are you sure you didn't miss the email?" "No, I saw the offer. I opened it. I remember reading it. I had 3 days. I thought I left it on the table." I tilted my head a little. "Maybe it got mixed with the mail?" He left the room without answering. I listened to the sound of drawers opening and papers being shuffled. He moved from the kitchen to the bedroom, then to the hallway closet. He opened every box, checked every folder, even searched his work bag. I followed slowly and stood at the door while he dropped things on the floor. "It's gone," he muttered. "It has to be here." I didn't throw it away. I said nothing. I just watched. He opened the trash bin, started pulling out old wrappers and receipts. Then he moved to the outside bin, digging through last week's garbage. His hands were shaking, his face red. "It doesn't make sense," he said. "I would never throw it out. Someone had to see it." I looked at him with wide eyes. "You think someone took it?" He stopped and looked at me, but he didn't say yes or no. His face was full of questions. I kept mine blank. For the next few days, he couldn't sit still. He checked the mailbox every morning. He called the company and left messages. He searched the house again and again. At night, he tossed in bed, whispering to himself. He started snapping over small things. The keys not being on the hook. A dish in the sink. He looked tired all the time, dark circles under his eyes. He couldn't let it go. I acted normal. I made tea, folded laundry, and asked if he was okay. He He kept saying he didn't understand what went wrong. I told him maybe it just wasn't meant to be. He didn't answer. Each day that passed, he became more distant, more silent. I could feel the pressure building in him. Not because of me, but because he had no one to blame. No reason that made sense. The job was gone. The letter was gone. And all he had left were questions. I didn't give him answers. I just kept smiling. It was a quiet morning. He sat at the table with his coffee, staring out the window. The job was gone. He had stopped searching by now, but his mood hadn't improved. He barely spoke. His face stayed blank most days. I stood near the door with my bag packed. He didn't notice at first. I waited a moment, then said his name. He turned slowly, eyes dull. "We're done," I said. His head lifted. "What?" "I'm leaving." He stood up fast. "Wait, why? What are you talking about?" I stayed calm. "I know about her. I've known for a while." His mouth opened, then closed. "It's not like that. It didn't mean anything. I told you I ended it." I took out my phone and showed him the photo. A picture of his things, his socks, his cologne, the framed photo of him and her, inside her apartment. I had taken it before leaving that day. His face froze. "You went there." "I found the gift. It had my name on it, but it was already open. You brought it to her first." He looked down. "It was a mistake. I didn't plan it that way." I took a breath. "You made a choice. You chose her." That was clear the moment I saw that photo. "It's over," he said quickly. "I was trying to fix us. I've been trying." I looked at him. "You were also hiding your job offer. That wasn't an accident either." He stepped closer. "Please, just give me one more chance. We can move past this. I'll do anything." I shook my head. "You gave up your chance the moment you decided to lie." He was silent now. His hands dropped to his sides. I could see the regret on his face, but it didn't matter anymore. "I don't hate you," I said. "I just don't want this anymore." I placed the key on the counter. He didn't stop me as I walked to the door. He just stood there, staring at the floor, lost in everything he had broken. The door closed behind me. I didn't look back. The first night away felt strange, but quiet. I stayed at my friend's place. She had cleared a corner of her small apartment, and I brought only one suitcase. It was all I needed: clothes, some books, and my phone. The rest I left behind. She didn't ask many questions, just hugged me and made tea. We sat in silence. That silence felt better than any apology I ever got from her. I didn't feel angry, just tired and still. The next morning, I made a list. Not a big one, just small steps. I needed a plan, not to fix anything, but to find space. First, I looked up a local therapist. I booked a session for the next week. I wasn't sure what I'd say, but I knew I had things I needed to talk through. Not about him, exactly. About me. About why I had stayed when things were falling apart. In the afternoon, I started looking at travel sites. A solo trip. Just me. Somewhere far but not loud. Somewhere I could walk and breathe and not see anyone I knew. I didn't know where yet, but I clicked through pictures of lakes, mountains, quiet streets, and long train rides. The idea felt good. No one to wait for. No one to explain myself to. Just time. My phone buzzed later that evening. I opened a social app without thinking. That's when I saw her post. Marissa. A blurry photo of a sunset, with some sad words written over it. Something about starting over and letting go. I stared at it for a moment, then closed the app. I felt nothing. No jealousy. No anger. No rush of pain in my chest. Just quiet. It was like watching someone else's life through a window. That chapter was closed. Not just the one with him, but the one with all the confusion, the pretending, the waiting. It no longer touched me. The days passed slowly but peacefully. I went for walks in the morning. I helped my friend cook dinner. I listened more than I spoke. The world didn't feel heavy anymore. I didn't tell many people what happened. I didn't post about it or try to explain. Some friends asked, and I just said, it didn't work out. That was enough. I kept going to therapy. Sometimes I just sat there, unsure what to say, and other times everything poured out. The pain, the doubt, the fear of being alone. My therapist listened and nodded. She didn't give me big answers, but she gave me space. And I was learning to sit with that space. I started reading again. Not heavy stories. Light ones. Stories where nothing bad happens. Stories with soft endings and slow morning. I liked those best. One night, as I sat by the window with a cup of tea, I looked through my old photos. Not the ones with him, but older ones. Me at the beach, me laughing with friends, me alone in a bookstore. I had forgotten that version of myself. The one who smiled without trying, who didn't live in doubt. I missed her, but I was finding her again. I booked the trip a few days later. A quiet town by the sea. I found a small place to stay with a view of the water. Just me, a journal, and some time away. I didn't tell him. I didn't need to. I didn't leave because I was angry. I left because I was done waiting to feel whole. I had given enough. Now it was my turn. And for the first time in a long while, I felt calm. I don't think about him much now. Sometimes his name comes up in a random conversation or memory, but it doesn't hurt anymore. It's like hearing about someone I used to know, not someone who once meant everything. I feel like I left him in another life. People ask if I regret anything. The time I spent with him, the way I left, the job offer, the silence. The truth is, I don't regret any of it. I had no reason to protect someone who broke my trust. I didn't scream, I didn't beg. I simply stopped caring. The hardest part wasn't the cheating. It was the way he lied with such ease, like it was normal. Like I wouldn't find out. Like I didn't matter enough. He gave something meant for me to someone else, and expected me to smile and be thankful later. He thought I would forgive. He thought I would stay. I remember that gift. I found it on her shelf, already unwrapped. My name was still on the tag. That part hit the hardest. He didn't even bother changing it. It was lazy and cruel. A gift can't fix betrayal. It just becomes part of the lie. I took that gift home. Not because I wanted it, but because it was mine. He didn't deserve to see it again. I never used it. I placed it on my shelf and left it there as a quiet reminder. Not of him, but of the moment I stopped waiting for love that hurt. He lost the job he wanted. Not because of bad luck, but because of his choices. I saw the offer. I knew the deadline. I watched the clock tick down while he smiled, thinking everything was fine. That envelope stayed buried under trash until it was too late. Just like how he buried the truth from me. I never told him how the letter disappeared. I never explained. Let him wonder. Let him feel what I felt, confused, betrayed, left behind. He made his bed when he chose to lie. I just let him sleep in it. Some people might say it was petty. Maybe it was. But I never claimed to be perfect. I claimed my peace, and that was enough. He gave her my present. I gave him his future. In the trash. He played games. She ended them without a word. Was it heartless or just karma doing its job? I need to know what you think. Was she right or wrong? Sound off in the comments. And if you love stories with a twist, hit follow and turn on notifications.